Hello and welcome to the A-List. I'm Alex Voorhees. My guests for this edition are Wendy Snyder and Jimmy Mac, who are the co-hosts of the internet podcasts Snyde Remarks Radio and The Forcecast. Welcome to the show, guys.
Thanks for having us.
What kind of inspired you guys to get into radio or podcasting?
Well, I guess radio first, right?
Yeah, actually, absolutely. And I'll let Wendy answer first because she started before I did.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess I'm older than you as well. Is that what you were implying?
A little bit.
All right. Well, I started back when I was in RB. You know, I went to RB High School.
Yeah.
Class of 1981.
Yeah.
Were you even born?
No.
Oh, man.
How does it feel to be back, first of all?
Well, first of all, it's all changed. The entrance used to be on Washington. Is that Washington?
I think that, yeah.
And now it's like near the zoo, and it's like a mini mall in here, not a huge mall. You walk in, there's a building within a building. It's quite nice.
I love the Mrs. Fields. Nice touch.
Thank you.
But back in high school, and probably even junior high, I always got in trouble for talking, always. So I thought, what could I do that would be involving me and my big mouth? Maybe radio. Plus, I loved music back then, so I got into, luckily, the Loop radio station. You've heard of that?
Yeah, yeah.
I worked there for 10 years and spinning tunes, and that's where I met this guy.
Yeah, what a red letter day that was. But I got into radio just out of my natural love for music, audio. I'm a big fan of the audio format. As a kid, I'd always grow up recording things on my little tape deck or trying to record music or just listening to records and things. That was a very important part of my childhood. And so when I got to a point where I realized, wow, you can actually get paid to work with this kind of stuff, I thought this would be a great thing to get into. So also my dad was kind of discouraging me to do it, so that just made me want to do it even more.
You rebel.
But and also it was something that I felt like I knew what I was doing the first time I did it. And I think that's kind of important when you have that sort of natural attraction to something. It's you should pursue it, you know?
Definitely. So speaking of radio, you guys have been on air with a whole lot of people. I mean, Steve Dahl, Kevin Matthews, many big names. Can you guys give me some thoughts about your time and experiences with some of these people across the radio?
Well, now I worked with both. We both worked with Kevin and Steve and Jonathan Brandmeier, and they're all different. I'll tell you that. And you kind of just learn to work with them. I grew up listening to them, so it was kind of
like a dream come true.
It was really cool. Like all of a sudden working with Steve Dahl. You were a big fan of Kevin Matthews.
Yeah, actually, and when I first started getting into radio, and I actually had the opportunity to work with Kevin when I was really young, and then I worked with Jonathan Brandmeier for 10 years. And those guys really were very creative, very energetic, very focused people, and I learned a lot from them as far as when you have an idea, how to nurture that idea, make it into something funny, and just to take some risks along the way. It was a special time working at the Loop in the 90s. We were like a big family. We still get together with a lot of the people we worked with during that time, and it's like family reunion. And the talent there, you know, the guys you mentioned, Steve and Gary, Kevin Matthews, Jim Shorts, Danny Bonaducci,
Dig that.
Jonathan Brandmeier, Buzz Kimman. These were all just, you know, to me, legends, and so it was just great to have the opportunity to work and play with them.
And that's it, play with them.
Definitely.
That was definitely it. And they paved the way for interesting radio, all of them, in their own strange ways.
So would you say you kind of learned the ways of how radio works from them? Like going about the radio, would you say you learned the ways of the radio, take risks and all that from them?
Well, yeah. I mean, those guys weren't really afraid to do anything or get in trouble. I mean, they all kind of had the adage, it's better to ask for forgiveness than permission.
Like the disco demolition.
Exactly. I mean, talk about risk right there. And, you know, working with Steve, I learned a lot. I mean, not many people can just talk about their everyday life and make it entertaining. And then Kevin is from another planet, and he had voices inside his head that, you know, came out in many ways. And Brandmeier, they called him the hyper rooster because that guy was all over the board.
So Wow, that's a great nickname. So for the people out there who are thinking, hey, I want to hear more of Jimmy Mack and Wendy Snyder, can you tell us a bit about your podcast, Snyder Marks Radio and the Forcecast?
All right, I will try and put the podcast. Do you listen to it?
Yeah.
Because I don't know that you should
Snyder
be.
Marks Radio,
I don't know that it's for your age. I think it's, maybe.
It's all
I'm embarrassed.
it's different for every person.
Well, what we do with Snyde Remarks Radio is, being a married couple, we talk about things in life that are important to us. Some I will mention, some I won't. Like our kids and they're growing up, and just crazy things that happen at Walmart. Just
Life in the suburbs.
basically, that's what it is.
We're just, we find in our neighborhood there are a lot of young parents our age, and our kids are all around the same age, and we still like to have fun and combine raising a family and a career and having fun and just being ourselves. We just find that people enjoy hearing our stories.
And it's kind of cathartic.
It is.
It's kind of cathartic
Yeah.
in the way where we save our fights for the podcast.
Sometimes,
so we,
yeah.
ever since we started podcasting, I don't think we fight that much in front of the kids anymore.
Yeah, it's just actually a pretty good thing. Wendy doesn't like to talk about anything really before we start doing the show, and so I'm trying to
So it's
expand
kinda
that to
improv.
I'm trying to expand that to like several days.
Oh, so now we don't talk at all?
So we'll just only talk on the podcast.
That's it.
Wow.
And on, the A-list with Alex Voorhees as well.
Thank you. What about the Forcecast?
Well, the Forcecast is a podcast about Star Wars and all things Star Wars, and we've been doing the Forcecast for 5 years now. You can find it at forcecast.net, and it's a fun. We have fun with it. We don't take ourselves too seriously. We try to inject a lot of comedy, interviews from celebrities in the Star Wars universe, guys like George Lucas, Mark Hamill, Clone Wars director Dave Filoni. I mean, you name it. If they've been associated with Star Wars, they've been on our show. Go on,
So
Alex.
being a huge fan, that sounds absolutely great. Go ahead.
Well, that's the thing, is I've always been a very big Star Wars fan, and I always wanted to sort of contribute to their fan community, but it was always very computer-based, and I'm not much of a computer geek, I don't really know how to write code or anything
Careful
like
about
that.
that word geek.
We might get to that, but so I always wanted to contribute, and this thing popped up out of nowhere called podcasting. And I, at first, being a broadcast guy, I stuck my nose up to it. I was a snob, and I said, podcasting, that's amateur hour. I don't want to have anything to do with it. But then I realized that there were podcasts out there about Star Wars. And so I found the biggest and the best one. They had just been going at this time for a few months. And I reached out to him and I said, hey, I'm a radio guy. I think I really like what you guys are doing with your show. I think I can get it to where you want it to be. And so we became friends, and I started producing the show, and then that turned into me essentially hosting the show. And I have a co-host out in Canton, Ohio, a guy named Jason Swank, who we're great friends and partners in this thing. And
More so than we are, because you see his true love is the Forcecast. Snyde Remarks Radio. You don't even give the website. It's SnydeRemarksRadio.net, by the way. But all this love and passion going into you and your partner, Jason.
See, she's jealous. It's jealousy. It's much like 3PO was jealous of R2. You know what I mean by that, right?
Of course.
Of course.
I
It was,
want to be
it
R2D2.
was very natural
But-
for robots.
I have to wear cinnamon buns on my head. Is that the only way to get your attention?
Maybe a metal bikini.
But speaking of podcasts, we have a bit of footage from Snyde Remarks Radio from one of the videocasts that we have up on the monitor here. If we can look over this way. So. All right, here we go. So tell us a bit about what you guys usually do on the videocast.
Can you blur out the beer bottles?
Oh, the transition.
We had high school.
We had a guy in here who did food review shows, so he had a few
Okay.
drinks. So I think we'll be.
Oh, there's the limes.
There's lines, because we make a drink on there
How
called
o-
the Freshie.
So how often do you guys do these videocasts?
We've done one.
Wow.
We've done one. Hope to do another one pretty soon.
So,
Essentially, what you're seeing is us recording the show in our backyard. Those are our neighbors joining us. Got the bag of potato chips there, a few cold ones.
just like a little hangout.
Little hangout.
With video and whatnot.
There's our son
Yeah,
Dylan.
see, our sons are part of the podcast.
In-
They're starting young. Hopefully, they will have their own podcast. You know, like kid. I don't even know what they could talk
There's
about.
Michael. So Michael is.
Nice to see you guys, the kids, are part of the podcast as well.
Yeah, it's just our family life, essentially. And we have kind of an open book. We live life by an open book. We don't really try to
Well,
pretend
we
we're
always have.
something we're not or anything like that. And we find that a lot of people sort of like hearing, they find it refreshing that we're so open and truthful about it,
Yeah.
about whatever.
So continuing on the topic of the podcast, could you give me a quick run through as to like what goes into setting up one of these videocasts or one of these podcasts, just like on a weekly basis?
I grab whatever scrap piece of paper is piled on my counter, whether it be a receipt, a menu from a pizza place, and I write a couple of ideas down that we want to talk about that week. You keep your ideas in your head usually, and then we basically every week it's, are you ready? Are you ready to roll? And then we go upstairs into the Star Wars room. You know, our kids have to share a bedroom, so Jimmy Mac can have a Star Wars room.
An entire room that goes to Star Wars, right?
We'll see what happens when they're
Very
teenagers. But in the summer, we sit in the backyard like you saw in the video cast, and just it's just us. And I will say that our past being in radio and being on all these shows with all these personalities, we really did bring all of ourselves out in the open. So we're continuing to do that now. I mean, nothing's really sacred with us.
Speaking of which, you guys get to, like, I've done a few remote podcasts at Palmer Place out in LaGrange and stuff like that. Could you tell me a bit about how that's different compared to just a normal podcast in the Star Wars room?
Well, that's the real trick, is trying to figure out a good way to blend being in front of a live audience and just being at home and still like maintaining what the show's all about. It's not too tough because as you heard us just say, our show's basically about nothing.
Yeah.
It's about us,
It's
you know. So
kind of like Seinfeld. It's a show about nothing.
right.
Kinda.
So how much
Except
prep?
Seinfeld was funny.
No, don't say that. The Seinfeld was very funny. But how much prep do you have to do in just being yourself? Not
But
much.
Exactly.
with the live remotes, we do try to do something a little different. Like,
try to have a bit of a plan.
no, a plan. What's that? No, we like our very first one at Irish Times in Brookfield. I sang, you played guitar. We won't do that again. I mean, it was fun, but we realized, boy, this is too much work.
The guitar sounded awesome.
Yeah, and then our last one at Palmer Place, we had a ukulele band.
Yeah, you
so
know.
I mean, we do something, and I will tell you that with a live audience, it makes us funnier because we work harder to get an immediate reaction from someone.
Certainly. So actually, you guys, having returned to the school, I noticed you are not on the Wall of Fame we have down there.
What is with that?
I don't know.
The Wall of Fame. You've got like an interior designer.
Who is on the
someone,
Wall of Fame?
I don't
Just
know.
alumni who have gone on to do successful things.
Hello?
And I would qualify.
Hello?
Yeah, I would definitely nominate you guys
This
if I
is
had
my
the power.
30-year reunion. I was class president here at RB. I
You know,
suppose I
I
should
mean,
plan that thing then. It's
so-
coming in October.
Just give me an example of some people who have made the Wall of Fame.
I actually don't know specific
you don't know,
names.
so
I
obviously-
usually
See,
don't
the kids
take
don't
a,
even care.
Probably not
Nobody
that
even
It's
walks
just
down
a thing
there.
you kind of pass by as you're going along. You say, those people could be interesting.
Never just stopped and looked and
No,
said,
no,
I heard
never
of that
actually.
guy.
Doesn't somebody have to nominate you to be on
I
the-
think so.
Well, what are you going to be doing after the show, Alex?
Trying to see if I can nominate you
All right,
guys.
then.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So, what do you guys do you have any plans for your future? Do you plan on continuing to do the podcast for as long as possible, or continue doing radio? What are you guys' plans?
Well, the wise thing to do is to try to combine what you do with the internet, because the internet is where everything's at these days, right?
Okay.
And you don't want to see you get wiped out in your normal job because you're being replaced by something going on with the internet.
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to do is figure out a way to sort of mash everything I do together into one thing by using the internet.
Yeah.
So that's where the podcasting comes in, because it just seems like to be the next step along the way.
And I work with Don and Roma on WLS right now, a powerhouse. I grew up listening to WLS when they played music, and I'm doing traffic with them, so I don't really interact with them too much. So this was your suggestion, you know, as my audio release to kind of start podcasting. So that's why I began. And now I love it, and we want to branch out. We have a cooking podcast that we're working on.
Nice.
And I really would like to see our kids do like some kind of video game review show or
Yeah,
something. It's going to be a whole Snyde Remarks
A
network.
Snyder Empire.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Thanks.
Dun,
Snyde-
dun, 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 dun.
Snyde Pyre.
Do you like me better
I
now
do
that
like
did
that. That was pretty good. A little
Unfortunately,
Imperial
I
March.
love talking to you guys, but we're out of time. Thank you for joining me on the A-List, guys. I'm Alex Voorhees. Thanks for watching.
It was really fun. Alex is a nice kid. Check this out. Look at this. Alumni medalists. Look at some of these people. All right, what have these people done?
Just like the Wall of Fame here.
Yeah, Robert Daly. All right, he's an actor.
Yeah.
He went here? Oh my God. Do you recognize any of these names?
No, where are you?
Michael Taus, he's a cook. That's about it. Do you know?
Where are you?
I'm not up here.
How could you not be up
I
here?
know.
You've been on Chicago radio for 25 years. You went to this school. You were your class president. You're not on the Wall of Fame?
I know, but I'm going to change that before we leave. Find a spot here. Should I just? I'm going to put it right here.
Hurry up before anyone sees you doing it.
All right. I'm on the Wall of Fame.
You did it.
Let's go.